Today, we're diving into a really critical moment for our digital lives, the collision of artificial intelligence and our personal security. And this isn't some far-off sci-fi scenario. We're talking about the landscape of 2026, where the battle for our identity is already being fought, and it's happening at machine speed. But to really understand where we're headed, we have to start with the very real human cost of where we are right now. This quote, it's not from a movie script. It's what a real victim of a massive data breach had to say. Just imagine your address, your passport scans, all leaked onto the dark web. For some people, the threat felt so real that their only choice was to pack up and leave home. That's what's really at stake here.
And this quote, wow, it shows you the pure chaos on an institutional level. After this cyber attack hit, the digital systems were so completely wiped out that staff were literally writing out orders on paper and running them between departments. They had to remember where things were because the digital catalog was just gone. They became the ordering system. They became the computer.
So, how did we get to this point, and where are we going? Well, first, we're going to dissect the very attack that forced people to become the computer. Then, we'll look at how AI is amplifying this kind of threat into something way more dangerous. After that, we'll explore the mathematical cloak of invisibility being built to protect us. And finally, we'll lay out the new rules for surviving in a world of zero trust.
So our story starts with one of the most important cultural institutions in the world, literally brought to its knees. Let's break down the devastating 2023 cyber attack on the British Library. The attack was incredibly fast, and the consequences have been incredibly long-lasting. It all started with so-called technical issues back on October 28th. Less than a month later, a hacker group was auctioning off 600 gigabytes of the library's private data. The library refused to pay the ransom, and so all of it was just dumped on the dark web. And get this, even 2 years down the line, critical services are still offline. It's just a shocking reminder of how crippling a single breach can be.
So who was behind this? A group called Rosetta. They're what's known as a ransomware as a service provider. And this points to a much bigger, more professional trend in cybercrime. You know, these aren't lone hackers in a basement. These are organized groups that target vital but under-resourced places. We're talking libraries, schools, hospitals, because they know these places can't afford a long, drawn-out fight.
So how did they even get in? Well, the crazy thing is, it wasn't some super sophisticated, never-before-seen hack. It was really a failure of the basics. The library was running on old, patchy systems. A key server, one set up for remote work, was missing multi-factor authentication. That's a huge, glaring hole. On top of that, the IT team was stretched thin, and there wasn't even a formal cyber strategy in place. So the point is, this wasn't just a tech failure. It was a failure of resources and planning.
And the price tag for that failure? A jaw-dropping £7 million. To put that into perspective, this one attack wiped out almost half of the British Library's entire financial reserves. Just a totally devastating blow for a public institution, and it really shows you how financially crippling these attacks can be.
And this right here is the key question. The British Library attack, as catastrophic as it was carried out by people. It took time and effort. But that threat is evolving. So now, what happens when you take this kind of attack and you supercharge it with AI?
And that brings us to what's being called the agentic threat. The whole game has changed. See, attackers aren't really focused on breaking in anymore. The new strategy is much, much simpler. They just log in, pretending to be you.
Just look at this number, a 1,500% jump in illicit online discussions about malicious AI in a single month. This isn't just a few people experimenting anymore. This is the rapid weaponization of artificial intelligence, and it's going from theory to active deployment at a truly terrifying speed. So what exactly are we up against? It's called agentic AI. And let's be super clear, we're not just talking about a simple tool like a password cracker. These are autonomous systems. They can plan an attack, they can carry it out, and they can learn from their mistakes to change up their strategy, all without a person pulling the strings. They are essentially autonomous hackers that work 24/7 at machine speed. And what can they do? This gives you a pretty chilling look. They can do autonomous recon, scanning thousands of targets at once, which shrinks the time from finding a weak spot to exploiting it from days to just hours. They can hide malicious code in a system that won't execute for weeks, so it looks like normal behavior. They can create malware that literally changes its own code to avoid being detected. And maybe scariest of all,
They can automatically find the links between your data across all your different apps, which makes the damage from one little compromise so much bigger.
So here's the bottom line. Attackers aren't wasting time trying to break through your firewall anymore. Why would they? There are over 3 billion stolen credentials from past data breaches just floating around out there. They can just use AI to test them at a massive scale until they find one that works and simply log in. Your personal identity has become the new front line in cybersecurity.
Okay, so if the threat is autonomous and moving at machine speed, our defense has to be just as sophisticated. And that brings us to a new kind of protection, a sort of mathematical cloak of invisibility called differential privacy.
All right, let's break this down, because it sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty clever. Imagine a big health survey. With differential privacy, a researcher could learn that, on average, people in a city walk 5,000 steps a day. But they could never find out your specific step count. It lets us get valuable insights about the group while making any single individual statistically invisible.
So how does it pull this off? By adding carefully measured mathematical noise. Think of it like this. If you're in a big, noisy crowd, it's pretty much impossible to pick out your individual voice. Differential privacy adds just enough statistical crowd noise to a dataset that your personal data can't be isolated. It really is a cloak of invisibility for your personally identifiable information, or PII.
Now, this protection comes in two main flavors. You have example level, which protects a single record, like one online purchase you made. But the real gold standard is user-level privacy. This protects all the data you've ever contributed to a system. It's much harder to do because it needs more noise, but it gives you a way stronger guarantee that your entire digital self is safe. That's the new frontier.
And this whole system is governed by something called epsilon, or the privacy budget. The easiest way to think of it is as a dial. If you turn the epsilon dial down, you add more noise. That gives you maximum privacy, but the insights you get from the data might be a little less accurate. Turn the dial up, you get more precise data, but with a bit less privacy. It allows organizations to make a very deliberate mathematical trade-off between how useful their data is and how private it stays.
Okay, so what does all of this mean for you and me? Well, that brings us to our final section. The future is all about zero trust. We have to learn to navigate a world that has a whole new set of rules for security.
Here are the new rules of the game. First, your identity is the new perimeter. Strong passwords are not enough. We need authentication that can resist phishing and actually analyze our behavior. Second, it's about bouncing back, not just blocking. You simply can't stop every machine speed attack, so you have to be able to recover in an instant. Third, our own AIs need governance. There has to be a human in the loop for big decisions. And finally, the most important principle, assume compromise. We have to build our systems on a zero-trust model, where no person or device is trusted by default.
And all of this leaves us with one last crucial question. As these autonomous AI agents get woven into the fabric of our lives, managing everything from our money to our public services, we have to decide, is our privacy an absolute right, or is it just a negotiation, a dial, like epsilon, that we're constantly tweaking in exchange for convenience? The answer to that question is going to define our future.